Great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome. It's our live webinar and why community is the future of short-term rentals and European lessons that we've got for you today. So I'm Neil Peterson. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Real Estate Investor, and I'll be moderating today's session. And our mission is to inform, connect, empower property investors, professionals, industry, and entrepreneurs through our monthly Real Estate Investor magazine, our daily news platform, rei.co.za. It's also a great educational platform, our weekly webinars, our interviews and newsletters, also our regular live event seminars and investor networking opportunities. So today's session proudly brought to you by REI in partnership with Scale South Africa and Sastra. So a little bit about Sastra. They are the South African Short-Term Rental Association. They're the recognized voice, as I mentioned, of the short-term industry. And their mission is to champion the interests of property owners, host managers, and stakeholders. And they do that by promoting the best practices, driving responsible growth, and helping build a thriving, sustainable short-term rental sector. And then, of course, we've got Scale South Africa. It's the only conference, as I mentioned, that is dedicated to property manager, hosts, and agencies. And that's going to take place on the 29th and 30th this month, and you get a 20% discount. So we'll send all those details through to you. So just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to be live for the next 60 minutes. The last 10 minutes will be reserved for audience Q&A, so please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box on the right-hand side. And we'll also be sharing the recording and the highlights after the session as well. So today we'll unpack why short-term rental hosts need community, what works and what doesn't in existing communities, and why events like Scale and groups like Sastra are game changers. And we're going to get some lessons from European regulation and how professionalism and collaboration unlock long-term success and where the future opportunities lie in short-term rentals. So without further ado, let's meet our panel. And today there are three incredible voices in the global short-term rental space. First, we have Damian Sheridan. He's the founder of Scale Rentals, Europe's leading short-term rental conference series, and a passionate advocate for host empowerment. Welcome to you, Damian. Great having you on board.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much for the invitation. Really delighted to be here online and obviously with you all in person in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Great. Then we've got Nick Taylor. So Nick, he's the co-founder of Sastra and a director at Knox Cape Town Rentals, and with deep experience in professional hosting and advocacy. Great having you, Nick. Wonderful to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Neil, and looking forward to speaking with all the attendees today about a little bit about Knox, but more importantly about Sastra and Scale and how we've got to this point in bringing a global conferencing event into South Africa, and look forward to informing all the listeners about that, as well as the value of community.
Absolutely. Of course, welcome and great to have you here, Nick. And then, of course, Miguel Martins. He's a property investor, he's a host and a community leader across both South Africa and the EU. Short-term rental circles. So welcome. Do you want to say how's it, Miguel, to the audience?
Thanks so much for having us. Looking forward to the conversation.
But let's dive into the question, I think. So let's talk about, I'm going to open it up to all of you, to all the panelists. Why is building community so crucial in the short-term rental space today, especially for hosts and operators? What are the lessons learned and informed decisions? And I've got to ask you, Damian, because obviously you're sitting now in Spain. Maybe tell everybody where you are, and you're kind of a leader in this field. So maybe you can kick off the discussion there.
Very kind of you, Neil. I'm not sure if I'm a leader here, but we do what we can at Scale. Yeah, I'm calling in from the south of Spain today. I think it's a lot warmer here than it is there. We're about 33, 34 degrees today, so it's quite a warm one. So community, yeah. So we started the Scale brand, the Scale kind of educational organization about 5 years ago. And it was, there were events in our industry, of course, there were lots of conferences going on and that were established. But we, at the time, myself and Gianpaolo, who is a co-founder of Scale, we felt that there wasn't enough of a community for those who are kind of established and professionals within our industry. And we felt that there wasn't a real meeting place for people to share their stories, to connect and to learn from each other as well as speakers. So that's what really we tried to create, and which we hope we have done with many of our conferences and with our online community and smaller meetups, etc. But it's we were talking about this the other day, guys, and I was saying that, and I'm sure people who are listening or watching in would probably concur. It's a very lonely existence, short-term rental industry. We can be with our head down, dealing with inquiries, bookings, turnovers, cleaners, everything that's involved. It's hard. It's hard to sometimes just take a look up and think, is there a community out there? What's the solution for this problem that I have, etc. And really, for me, the most important thing is just sharing that knowledge and your questions with other people, just to know that there are others in the same situation as you, and just maybe even at very least just to know you're doing things the right way, and you're not getting perhaps left behind by others. So for me, community is just sharing that knowledge and collaborating with each other, and just and as I say, just knowing perhaps that we're not alone, that we all have similar struggles, maybe similar wins as well. But as a lot of people, we're going to talk about regulation obviously later on, and just to know what's happening. And unless you're part, I said this the other day, if you need to be in the conversation, because otherwise you're going to get left behind. And I think that's part of the community as well.
No, great. Thanks for that, Damian. So, Nick, I just want to bring in here. I mean, you guys specialize, Knox Cape Town, short-term rentals. Maybe you can talk from your experience, what was missing when you first entered the short-term rental space, and how did community fill that gap?
Absolutely. So Knox was founded by Richard Marshall, my business partner, in about 2004, and I joined in 2006, way before Airbnb was even a thought in the Airbnb founders' heads. And back then, we went on an interesting journey, and there was a couple of operators, one or two competitors in the market, and we were kind of stumbled onto this industry through Richard picking up some properties that were bought by foreign investors primarily, and they didn't really know what to do with the keys once they got onto the plane and went back to Europe or the UK, wherever they were from. And I think at the beginning it was really challenging because the advancement in technology didn't allow us to interact or engage with people locally or internationally. And certainly what's happened in the last 5 to 8 years is that social media has significantly helped in being able to create a bit of a foundation for communities to start gathering in various forums and groups, and especially for the professional hosting community within a LinkedIn environment. And I think effectively it acts as your radar and your compass. And without that, you're really just a sort of a cork bobbing on the ocean, kind of doing your own thing and muddling away. And what community can do, and we've certainly seen the value in it at Knox, is being able to kind of just swap notes at events and seminars and an online forum and kind of go, wow, I'm really struggling with this. Like, is there a tool that can assist me with this, or some software? So it's really ramped up our ability to become a lot more professional in being able to get best practices from not only locals, but also more importantly, internationally. And back in 2020, I think we were just coming out of COVID. The world was starting to move again. And I saw Damian and Gianpaolo put out their first scale event in Barcelona. And I said to Richard, I'm going to that. I don't care if we don't have the budget. We haven't made a rand of income for the last year and a half. But I need to get over there to see what this is all about, because we need to start interacting and engaging with the global community a lot more, for not only for Knox, but for what I believe is the South African industry as a whole.
Fantastic. So it's a learning experience for us all. And I think those that are online are also there to learn. And we're here to gain knowledge from each other, share, network, and that kind of thing. And that's what Scale's all about. So Miguel, I see there's all 17 of you that has joined us, it seems, as panelists. Not quite sure how that happened, but maybe you tell us your story, where you started, and your experience, how long you've been in that short-term rental space, and maybe, how community fills that gap from your perspective.
No, thanks, Neil. Absolutely. So 3 years ago, I was in corporate. I was in banking for the last 25 years, and that's when you and I met on these webinars and talking about property
Absolutely.
investment, etc. Right at Absa Home Loans. And having left corporate, I got into I got my first listing with Airbnb about 3 months after I resigned, and have been building a portfolio since then. And one thing I did was I found it very lonely. I didn't know when I was having, when I wasn't getting bookings, I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't get a sense whether it was me, whether it was the market, what was going on. Was I doing something wrong on the platform? And I reached out to a couple of hosts through social media, and that's where the WhatsApp groups were born. And today we have 5 WhatsApp groups that go across Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, Cape Town, and then Limpopo and Mpumalanga. And we've got just around 1,000 hosts across those groups. And so important to share experiences, help each other, provide support. Sometimes it's technical, operational, know-how. This is how you do it, fix it like that, deal with that guest like that. And sometimes it's just moral support. Guys, I'm having a bad day. I'm not sure what's going on. And just having that there. There's a little statistic that, it's data in this industry is very difficult to get hold of. But we understand that there are about 50,000 hosts in South Africa. And when we've extrapolated the numbers and done a little bit of online research, we've equated that short-term rental beds account for about 50% of all beds in South Africa. The rest being hotels, guest houses, bed and breakfast. But short-term rentals, as we understand them, Airbnbs, are about 50% of all beds. And it's a massive industry no one knows about. It's below this, it's below the surface. And things like the Scale conference that's coming up in 2 weeks' time, the WhatsApp groups, some of the social media groups are critical to actually bringing this community together and to improve norms and standards, become more professional, etc.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Thanks for that background, and interesting to see how their journey has moved. And it'll be interesting to hear whether Damian also has data issues in Europe. If that's the same kind of thing. But Damian, let's talk about Scale Rentals. I mean, it's become a key community builder across Europe. And how do events like Scale foster lasting host collaboration and, more importantly, industry change?
Wow. Well, I guess things have changed an awful lot over the years. We started this 5 years or so ago. We've got events in the UK, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain, across Europe, and then the Middle East and South Africa. But I guess a classic example is our first South African event last year with Nick and everyone there. The sense of excitement of all of our attendees who was there was really palpable, and people just learning from each other, as well as we had international speakers come in and international property managers. And I think we can all feed off each other. I said this before, just making sure we're doing things that maybe the right way or the wrong way, sharing all of our issues and our challenges. But I think the main thing is that we learn together, and I think that's something that we've really taken on board with the Scale events, is that we do a lot. You'll see some fantastic speakers in a couple of weeks, as we put a lot of effort into curating good content. But there's no substitute for just meeting with people in person and just discussing things, having a beer, wine, or soft drink or something like that, and just a coffee, and just discussing just these trials and tribulations that we all encounter on a day-to-day basis, because really that's what at the heart of any scale event, and I think that's going to be really prominent in over the 2 days in Cape Town again.
Right, that's wonderful. So, and I just say to the audience, I encourage you to go along, to learn from these different events. And so it's going to be 2 weeks' time. It's going to be Lagoon Beach Hotel, 29th, 30th. So once again, I'm going to be pushing that through every now and again. So Nick, I want to bring you in here, and Miguel alluded to it. Like we looked at sort of informal networks like WhatsApp groups, Facebook communities. And they've seemed to have sprung up everywhere, both in the long term and the short term, in terms of communication, which Damian was just talking about first of all, from a group in person, he's saying, but let's talk about, the digital way of communicating. So what role do informal networks like WhatsApp groups or Facebook communities play in South Africa's short-term landscape? And where are they succeeding and where are they falling short?
Yeah, look, I think WhatsApp and Facebook groups and these kind of groups are excellent for quick, immediate problem solving, for a sense of support, got a challenge, help me out, how do I handle this, that kind of thing. And they're foundational to the industry. I think when we look back at Knox, there was no playbook, and there was no WhatsApp, and these kind of things didn't exist. So we were really like kind of living in a bit of an echo chamber where we couldn't get any engagement or support from other members of the community. So there's definitely a place for them, and I think obviously aggregation of that information can only benefit a broader community base, and certainly that's what we are attempting to do with Sastra, is to create a short-term rental association and an industry which provides better collaboration and the ability for us to have a more broader reach, which is with the information being aggregated, so we can use that to communicate with various authorities, local government, national government, and be able to align Sastra members' interests with an event like Scale. So I think at the end of the day, the sort of the informal groups get us started, but the formal groups and the formal associations gets us taken seriously, and certainly that's where we are looking to go with Sastra. We want to become better noticed and more professionalized and more recognized as an accommodation segment that coexists alongside hotels and guest houses and bed and breakfasts and lodges.
Excellent. Good. So, Miguel, I mean, you've worked with host communities across multiple platforms and regions as well. So what defines a truly effective short-term rental community? Because you're based up in Johannesburg, you're not doing the Cape Town thing, you're doing the Airbnb in Joburg and Cape Town.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, so it's so interesting. When we started those communities, I was concerned that it'd be very competitive. People that wouldn't want to share. It's a competitive space. We compete on pricing. We compete on listings. We compete on the platforms. But when we get onto those groups and those conversations, it's all about support. I've gone through this. Let me tell you what I learned. Let me tell you how to do this. I think this community is so big that when you've got a couple of hundred people on a group, that it's all about support, and we are widely dispersed. So no one's really down the road from each other to really even worry about competition. So it's only been positive, and through those communities, we myself and Nick and the rest of the directors met at the first Scale event last year, and it was literally at the right place at the right time. We said, there's regulation coming. That's the burning platform. How do we start addressing this? And out of that, it was a lunch break or it was a coffee break or something. So that's where that conversation was born. It was followed up with an online meeting just like this. And by June last year, 3 months later, we had already put together. We had formed Sastra. It's a non-profit company. We just started acting that way. Since then, we've actually engaged with the Department of Tourism. We're sitting with, we're having workshops with the people actually writing this white paper. We've joined FedHasa and a couple of the other associations. We're on the TBCSA, formally engaging with government. We've come so far. But it all starts with community, with getting around whether it's a virtual table or definitely face-to-face. It starts there, and that's where any movement starts.
Okay, great. So, Damian, I want to come to you. European insights for South African investors. I mean, what are some of the biggest lessons or trends from European short-term rental markets that South African hosts should be paying close attention to right now? I mean, Miguel alluded to, obviously, regulation, but maybe there's more.
Well, yeah, I completely concur. Regulation is the biggest trend, fear amongst all hosts and property managers around Europe. There's not any country in Europe that's not been affected by this. Some a lot more seriously than others. Some where planning permission, licensing is required, and it's been pushed through so quick that businesses have basically ceased to operate almost overnight. So it's quite frightening. There's a lot of countries rather who are where it's major change is imminent. Take where I am in Spain for the moment. As an example, a local mayor has the right, one person has the right to change the whole short-term rental marketplace within a municipality. If they don't like it, if the hotel lobby is strong within that town, that you can be banned. The whole town cannot have any short-term rentals. So it's quite frightening how that threat is there throughout Europe. And I would say, to the South African government and SASTRA, we, in terms of lessons learned, I think that was the title of this session, learn how Europe has done this badly, because there have been so many draconian bans put in place across many European countries. And they perhaps just scrape data from a source like AirDNA or something, and they see that there are that amount of units offering short-term rentals within a city or country, and they think, well, that's it. This is the scapegoat we need for affordable housing, and it means that we don't have to start building more units or properties. So it's an easy scapegoat. But look, that said, that's negative. There are trends. There are things that are changing the industry. Probably the biggest, I would say, is AI. How AI tools are it's just phenomenal growth in the last 18 months. Those who come to our show will see meet a couple of providers. I think how that has changed our industry and makes operations easier. And Nick will be able to talk about this more than I will, but I think that's perhaps the biggest trend change that I've seen in the last 12 months across Europe.
So do maybe you could share, is there perhaps maybe an example of one regulation that was implemented that we could learn from? Maybe there's something, because you said it, some of it was handled very badly, and we've also managed to do, we also have a lot of regulation in this country, maybe too much in many ways, but and also in the real estate industry. So maybe, can you maybe just share one? That's just Sure. One that we could probably get the heads up on.
Absolutely. Well, look, I think it's important to say that regulation is a good thing and doesn't need to be a bad thing. Where all hosts and managers and owners they're paying their taxes, they're doing things the right way, and I know the guys, fellow panelists here would agree with that. It's a good thing for this industry to be regulated in a responsible way. Scotland is a standout example in Europe. Just changes overnight. Especially all really focused on Edinburgh and the growth of short-term rentals in the city of Edinburgh, especially around the Fringe Festival in August. And that was used as a case study for the whole of Scotland. And whether you had a property in the Highlands or in the city centre, I believe that nearly all were dealt with in the same way. I know several operators who almost overnight lost their businesses because of just blanket sweeping bans or just almost impossible licenses to get when they had to change their licensing regulations. So yeah, I would encourage anyone who is interested in regulation and how Europe has done it wrong. Do a search online of Scotland. Check out Fiona Campbell, everything that she has done with the Association of Scottish Self-Catering. And yeah, I mean, there's so many, and honest, Neil, there's so many examples of poor regulation planning. But I think Scotland is the one that have really, taken the biscuit and done it very poorly.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, in South Africa, we actually had our local mayor, in fact, alluded to it earlier this year. There was no implementation of any short-term regulation. We know it is coming, and just a matter of timing. He has to deal with, local rate increases first. And thank goodness it's handled by local government and not our national government. Because we think that would be a complete disaster. But anyway, so it's coming. And I want to bring you in here, Nick, just in terms of that. And I've had a few conversations with Airbnb short-term rental owners, and a lot of them that I've spoken to haven't been negative about it. They understand it is going to come because hotels, I understand, are charged the levy. And they have the feeling, well, any short-term rental operator should be charged the same in an Airbnb short-term market. So your thoughts around that, Nick? Maybe you want to add to that conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I think, Sastra was really founded because no one was standing up for the industry. And in our engagements that we've had with the authorities, they can't really be seen to be taking too much advice and commentary from private organizations. So this is why we formed an industry body. And certainly we felt the need for more of a credible and coordinated response to the proposed regulations. And the enormous amount of work that we've done over the past 12 months has allowed us to enter those rooms, as Miguel mentioned earlier, with the policymakers. And I think that's been an incredibly valuable exercise because we're now on the radar. And literally 18 months ago, we weren't. And I think the commendable effort to my fellow board members on Sastra is that we're able to now have a little bit more influence on the shape of our future and be able to hopefully take, and we have already presented some of the bad lessons that have been learned in various other global markets and presented that straight through to our local authorities. And I've said, like, let's work on this together, because if we just kind of steamroll a regulatory environment without any consideration because you're following trends about what's been done in Barcelona or New York, we're going to end up with a major issue in South Africa. And we've got a whole lot of other macroeconomic issues that we need to address. It's not all about hotel lobbyists and housing crises and all the rest of it and over tourism. In actual fact, South Africa is crying for tourists to come here, and I think decimating an entire segment of the industry would just make it incredibly harder for us to attract the guests that only wish to stay in short-term rental accommodations globally, and that's what they prefer over hotels. So I think us to be a collective voice is critical. And for I think most importantly is that the connections that we are able to now form through a Sastra community has helped fast track our learning, not only individually but as a collective, and hopefully along the way avoid expensive mistakes and I think ultimately navigate change with a bit more confidence.
Absolutely. I've got a comment here from Brent Holmes. He says, having lived in Portugal for the last 3 years, I've seen the challenges in Europe and how badly it's been done, but there are some solutions which we need to implement to secure the industry, which I believe will help after 25 years of being in this industry. So Miguel, I want to bring in here because, with Sastra, you're almost ahead of the game in some ways. I mean, so maybe the parallels, and you can learn from these lessons. You formed Sastra to exactly deal with this. Am I not correct in saying so?
look, Sastra is the game. There is no one
Yes.
else in South Africa. There's no other association in South Africa standing up for or representing short-term rentals. So in April, we did a survey of a couple hundred hosts. And a couple important figures are worth noting. 80% of hosts are female. So in terms of women in tourism and encouraging that, on average, a host will employ 2.7 people. Whether it's a housekeeper, gardener, plumber, electrician, tradesman, etc. So there is a lot of employment hanging around this industry. 65% of our hosts are self-employed or part-time employed. So the income that they earn from their listing is an important part of their household income. And then the last data point I want to share is that what we saw is that 45% of hosts are breaking even. So they aren't even actually making any income. And these stats are important because this isn't about large property management companies. This isn't about necessarily hosts who've got portfolios, etc. The vast majority of hosts have one, maybe two listings at most. I think for the most part, and again, we don't actually have these data points, but for the most part, they're one property listings. So this is an industry that very few really understand. We're starting to scratch at the surface. We're starting to understand that this is a significant industry, and to your point, the opportunity we have from a regulation perspective is that we can learn from what's gone right and largely what's gone wrong overseas. A last comment is in the white paper that government put out last year, October. They mentioned a couple cities specifically, and two of those are London and Paris. And in both London and Paris, they have 90-day night caps. So after 90 days worth of bookings, you need to close down your listing because now it becomes an illegal listing. In Paris, if you're found to be trading or taking bookings outside of the 90 days, you can get €100,000 fine.
Wow.
Now, what we absolutely don't want is this any thought of night caps coming into South Africa. But the fact that that those two cities are specifically mentioned in the white paper makes us very nervous. And the minister has committed, the Minister of Tourism has committed that the bill will be coming out, the updated tourism bill will be coming out next year, in the new financial year. We expect April, May. Until we see what's written in there in black and white, we are going to assume the worst, and we're really going to be pushing and influencing as much as possible in the industry and with government.
Great. I think a message out there for anybody in the short-term rental game, become a member of Sastra, because you don't want to do this alone. You don't want to fight this battle by yourself. There's no two ways about it. You need to get part of a bigger group. So shout out to that. You want to add to that,
Neil? I mean, and with government, to deal with things after the fact, and to reverse laws and bylaws, etc., is incredibly difficult and time consuming. You might be able to get it done over 3 years. During those 3 years, you are impacted. You cannot operate. You're operating illegally, etc. So we've partnered with the associations in Paris. There's a Paris association, and there's a UK short-term rental association, and we discussed the London and Paris experience. And what they both told us is that this 90-day cap created a massive illegal community operating outside the 90 days. That isn't right, and we definitely don't want to create that in South Africa.
No, absolutely. No, thanks for bringing that point forward. So, Damian, what opportunities do you see for international collaboration between Europe and Africa? Because obviously you're also coming to the South African conference, the SCAL conference, which you run internationally. And maybe you can share where you see those opportunities.
I think Miguel just alluded to it a moment ago that there's huge scope for associations in different countries to speak to each other, to learn from each other. We had Andy Fenner from the UK Short-Term Association come last year and provide really valuable insight on the UK situation. And I know that helped Nick, Miguel, and fellow Sastra members to start the formation of Sastra. But I think in terms, they don't need to be official collaborations. I go back to what Nick said at the very start of this call. Was he came to one of our events and saw the possibility of bringing a conference like this to South Africa, and it's just that it's perhaps just it's just some foresight to see, hey, perhaps we could do this in another country. And that was what 3-4 years ago, Nick. I mean, our first Scale South Africa was a long time in the making, and at the time, I admit we thought, no, no chance. What do we know about South Africa? But many years down the line, I know all of the Sastra team. I know having met many people at the show last year, there is such a hunger to learn and to have better regulations and just to bring the community together. So I think just that collaboration alone, Neil, can really help, just to see perhaps maybe how a community or how attendees or whatever you want to call it, how people have been brought together in one country. Let's do it in another country, and let's have that voice together rather than us all just being keyboard warriors, as I mentioned the other day.
I like that word. Keyboard warriors. Don't become a keyboard warrior. You got to get out there. You've got to engage with people one-on-one. Absolutely. And I think that's what you mean by that, Damian, which is absolutely 100%. It's a people, business, property in whatever way or form. So Nick, I want to bring you in here as well. And just also to our audience, I just want to reach out. You got any questions, please fire away. This is an opportunity. The guys are going to be here in 2 weeks. We've got a 2-day conference on the 29th. It's on the 30th of July. Join them. If you're in the short-term rental game, you got to be there, and you got to be part of that whole dialogue. So Nick, just coming back to you, and in terms of what Damian was saying, I mean, how can stronger communities protect hosts' rights? The rights of the hosts and elevate the professional standards in the short-term rental operations?
Well, I mean, ultimately, if we look at the first scale event last year, March, and the formation of Sastra shortly afterwards, what we wanted to create was leverage, and I think we're there, and I think we are making it easier for ourselves to disallow unfair policies from being passed. So we're now at the point where we want to really start ramping up Sastra's value add to the community, not only with regulations, but with everything else. Because I think, if you're part of a network, you also naturally up your game. There's almost the sense of peer accountability, of standardization, of working with very localized ratepayers association. There might be an issue with a specific property because it lends itself to a lot of neighbor disturbance because of noise, or the design of the property perhaps isn't suitable for it to coexist within a community. And if that's the way it is, that's fine. But at least a local ratepayers association can go, well, are they part of Sastra? Can we address this in a more formal environment rather than having a disgruntled neighbor, throw eggs at the property and the guests? So, and what it does allow is, we hope our sort of mission is to try and have every single person that does short-term rentals in South Africa sign up to Sastra. It's on our website. There are some free memberships, and there's also a range of memberships for depending on how heavily involved you are in the industry. And would love to be able to welcome people from far and wide across South Africa to join up, because I think what we can assist with is a shift from a more sort of informal trading environment, a more informal industry, into something which really sort of drives professionalism and protects the sector in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, if we start looking at the penalties that Miguel was talking about, I mean, 100,000 euros, it will probably bankrupt many operators, and you don't want to be stuck. And obviously, we don't have regulation in South Africa right now, but we don't know what it's going to be, as we said. So, but we've got to be prepared for this kind of thing. So, Miguel, let's talk a little bit about mentorship, peer sharing play in helping new short-term rental hosts succeed faster and probably avoid common pitfalls?
Yeah, absolutely. If I can, I think we've been talking a lot about, the negative side of the industry around regulation, etc. And referencing, the upcoming Scale conference. Last year's conference, what I took most out of it, other than meeting my fellow directors at Sastra and just kicking Sastra off, was the international speakers. The Rebecca Cribben from Australia. She mentioned one thing in her presentation that helped me generate an additional 100,000 in revenue in the last year. It was one thing. And that's why you go to these, not just to understand the experiences from other people and other countries, but
and you're not prepared to share that now, Miguel, that 100,000 rand secret. We want to know what it is.
I share it.
Or come to scale.
Exactly. But honestly, what we do is when we go back to our communities and our WhatsApp groups, is I do share it freely there, and we share our learnings there, because it's for everyone to take it up. But it's about the positives as well. This year, Rebecca's back. I'm looking forward to seeing what else she has to share with Bated Breath. We've got Mark Simpson coming in from Boostly, and he talks all about going the direct booking route, and leaving the expensive Airbnb and Booking.com platforms behind, and it's about a balance. But it's great to have all these different voices and learnings coming in. So from a mentorship perspective, it's about going to these places and where the experts are going to be. But then from a localized community perspective, last night we had a meetup of hosts in Johannesburg. We met in Johannesburg North. About 25, 30 hosts met up at a restaurant. I shared some slides and some screens about, and we all learned together, but we all spoke. At one stage, we had to just calm everyone down, because everyone is just sharing and talking, etc. And we had a fantastic evening, and people walk away. It's not just about having a big social, although that's important. I'm not in this alone, kind of thing. But people walked away having solved a problem, having found some, having understood someone else's problem that they might experience in the future, and they walked away better hosts from interacting, in those face-to-face meetups. We try to have these in Johannesburg. We have them every month. In Cape Town, every second month, and we're going to grow as we're able to. So that mentorship, the mentorship is usually a senior mentor versus mentees, but this is about community mentorship where we help each other, and it's so valuable, and it just brings that vibrancy of the community out, into the open place.
Yeah, you mentioned Bruce Lee. That's not the eviction property guy, is it? The Enter the Dragon one, the one that does all the karate chops. And no, on a serious note.
Nick, we have our own South African Bruce Lee.
Okay, great. On a serious note. So, Nick, looking ahead, what do you believe are more of the biggest growth opportunities in the short-term rental space for South Africa investors and hosts?
It's a fascinating question, because I think these trends change, sometimes subtly, sometimes quite aggressively and in your face. Certainly, what we're seeing at the moment, and Knox is positioned in a more sort of premium sector of the market, but we are seeing that guests are very much willing to pay for consistency in the experience, and almost have the comfort that what they're booking has a set of standards laid into the experience, and it's not a lucky dip lottery kind of thing where they arrive and they have absolutely no idea what they're going to get. So I think differentiation, finding some interesting things about your home, absolutely making sure that property offers a dedicated workspace is an absolute minimum requirement in this day and age. And yeah, we're seeing sort of hybrid investment models across the parts hotel space, with multi-unit type properties being bought in significant quantities, obviously benefiting from various tax incentives. with buying 5 off-plan properties at a time, that kind of thing. So that's all coming. But ultimately, I think what guests want is they want the privacy, they want the space, and they want the comfort that they're spending their money wisely. So professionalization and providing a really good experience is ultimately critical to any investment in our space.
Excellent. No, well said. And so, Damian, I want to bring in you here because we want to tap into, I mean, you've been in this game and you're in Europe and we need to learn from you. So if you had to kind of summarize the future of the short-term rental industry, I mean, what would it be and why? What is in that future?
I think it's very exciting. We've spoken, about regulation, and there's an often negative connotation to that for sure, and it's deemed as a threat. But this industry is still emerging, and we're still in our infancy. If I think back to pre-Airbnb days, especially when we were referred to as alternative accommodation to hotels, and that now that doesn't really exist. It's a mainstream type of accommodation, short-term rentals. So I think seeing that growth, especially since COVID, has been quite remarkable, actually. So I think really I find it very exciting moving forward, and I think we shouldn't be looking too negatively on the threat of regulation, so long as it's done correctly, so long as everybody joins their local association. And I can't stress that enough. And it's almost regardless of the scale South Africa event and our association with Sastra. I would just plead with all hosts and property managers out there to join whatever level of membership it is, to join your association, be it in South Africa or beyond, and have a seat at the table, because otherwise you are going to get left behind. And don't necessarily expect an immediate ROI from this as well, because it's about having a voice. And we see something, again, a lesson learned from Europe. Associations have real trouble getting members, and I see this in nearly every country, because those operators want to see a tangible ROI from it. What are we getting from this, apart from somebody, lobbying on our behalf? But that's the crux. That's the key. Somebody is lobbying on your behalf in a way that you could never do on your own. So just to make sure you have that, you're supporting, you have that seat at the table. It's really important. So I think that is my word of advice, I guess, for everyone, apart from come to the event and in a couple of weeks. But I think, yeah, it's a really exciting and emerging industry, and not to be scared of.
Well, I mean, Miguel said he got the 100K idea, and I mean, we mustn't really just put that aside. And that's what happens. I think when you go to conferences of this kind of type, you either meet somebody or you gain some knowledge from that, and which could change your business, which is quite significant. So I think that in itself, if we can add to all the reasons that you've said, Damian, let's add the 100K idea. And maybe let's talk about it in pounds and euros rather than rands. So, and really upscale that one. So I just wanted a few comments here. I see, we've got, more than almost 50 people here, but we don't have enough questions coming through. And I see Bryn, and it's some good comments here from Bryn. He's saying hospitality has been lost in a lot of countries. So premium products are going to be the future. The every Tom, Dick, and Harry are the people needed to be separated from the hospitality industry, and thus the way to do this is using an old system that we used to have called star grading. Nick, do you want to add on to that? Because you're certainly in the premium product area. Yeah, that's definitely it. Do you want to maybe just on those comments?
Yeah, absolutely, Bryn. Thanks so much for the question. Star grading is a topic that is very much on Sastra's radar. We have started talking to the Department of Tourism, as well as the TBCSA, who have mentioned standardization, and we are actually in the point of drafting a proposal about a self-catering short-term rental specific set of standards, and to try and engage with the Tourism Grading Council of South Africa to actually be able to provide SASTRA members with a grading certificate and to go through that annual process. Because it's quite right. If we are going to, which we all espousing to do, is to professionalize, deal with regulation, make sure that we're compliant with fire and safety or whatever it might be. And there's an independent grading body that kind of says, right, you're on the right track here. This is good. Then, and if that's what our regulation is in South Africa, that lifts the general standard and gives a form of quality guarantee to every single guest that stays in short-term rental in South Africa, then great. And I think what will happen ultimately is there will be this aspect of having a graded property which is linked to an association or a membership, such as what we have with SASTRA. And I'm sorry, my screen seems to have frozen here.
No, you're fine. We can see we got you. We're all good. Okay, not quite sure. You're fine.
So there will certainly be an aspect of standardization.
Okay, now you have frozen briefly, but not a problem. You can. Do you just want to wrap up there quickly, Nick? It's fine. You're back on again.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree to Bryn's point in terms of grading and standardization. I think we'll get there. As Damian said, I think the industry is in its infancy, not only globally, but also locally. We're starting to get recognized, and these kind of goals and aspirations are certainly part of our pipeline and our agenda.
Okay, good. I wanted to, because Bryn is quite conversational with us, which I like. I enjoy. Thanks for all the comments here, Bryn, because you're really adding value to the conversation. He mentions here the USA is littered with lockbox places, and this puts everyone into the market, same as Europe. And there's no quality control, and thus people who are interested in being in the business need to invest and keep the quality high. And this separates the lower properties, and this puts them back into the long-term rental market. And, like any business, if you have a restaurant, you need licenses, and these maintain the quality of restaurants, and that's the same should be for short-term rentals. Thank you for those comments. I don't know if you want to add to that, Damian, if any thoughts around that.
I would like to add to...
Hence the style grading. Yeah.
I'd like to add to Bryn's comment about hospitality. That's really relevant, and I love that, because we have, certainly in Europe and US, we have lost sight of hospitality a little bit over the last 5 years or so, especially with the advent of more technology, more automated services. Quite often we don't, and obviously this is Knox excluded, and everyone who's listening, but we've kind of lost sight of that relationship with our guests. And quite often with this amazing tech that's at our fingertips, sometimes we don't even have to speak to our guests. Everything is done for us, but there's no rapport, there's no relationship there, and we're not perhaps aware of the service that we're giving to people. It's just a transaction. So I love this comment. This is something we're trying to bring back into being a core message at any scale event. We're accommodation providers. We're accommodating. We are hospitality providers. Let's not forget that. We need to build relationships with our guests. We like Mark Simpson will absolutely talk about this in terms of direct bookings. It's maintaining a relationship with a guest to make sure if they're going to come back to Cape Town, wherever it is, they know the name of Knox, or they know the name of your property management company. So just have a great sense of hospitality with each and every guest that comes through your door.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I saw you put your hand up there, Miguel.
Yeah, just building on that. So many long-term rental investors get into the short-term rental market, not understanding that they're actually getting into hospitality. And that requires, that they may have the software, they may have the systems to manage a short-term rental, but their mindset has to adjust to that of hospitality, of welcoming, of feeling, allowing guests to feel welcome, managing through their stay and then managing their exit. And that's definitely, myself, that's a process I had to undergo through and a mindset shift I had to go through. And again, getting into communities and really starting to understand that and how to manage, your more difficult guests, etc., or your more demanding guests. And guests, they're guests, so they're going to be demanding. They're going to ask what they want, and you've got to figure out how to manage that. It's just part of the industry we're in. So that mindset is something that talks to the industry, talks to the fact Bruno's comments about there being lack of hospitality in the industry because of who's entered the market. It's very easy to take photos of a property, list it this afternoon, potentially even get a booking tonight. It's that easy, and that's great to get into the market. That's fantastic, but with it comes these other challenges. In that survey we held in April, one of the questions we asked is what hosts felt, what are their expectations of regulation from a positive perspective. And the overwhelming feedback is we expect regulation to help bring better norms and standards to the market. They're looking forward to regulation improving the market. So that we definitely see as a positive outcome, with regulation done correctly.
Excellent. Great. Thanks for that, Miguel. What I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to give you a rapid fire round, short answers only, one sentence max, and then I'm going to give you a little opportunity in 30 seconds to wrap up. So we'll start off with you, Damian. What is one tech tool every host should be using? You just need to sit yourself. Oh, there we go.
That's very difficult, Neil, because we have lots of sponsors.
Just say one. Just say one. You're allowed one. In fact, you could all share them across and then I'll ask Nick and I'll ask Miguel. I'm not putting you in a corner. I'm putting you all in a corner.
Okay. Let's give a shout out to headline sponsors in Cape Town who are Boom. I know Nick uses them as well. AI tool. They are phenomenal at what they do in terms of automation, in terms of dealing with guests, inquiries, just making life significantly easier for you. Their tech is phenomenal.
Wonderful.
So, shout out to
Great.
Boom.
Nick, one tech tool. And
yeah, Boom it is. We have been working with the platform for about the last 18 months. The website is www.boomnow.com. I even know that offhand. And certainly it is one of the most progressive tools that we've seen for a long time.
And Miguel, anything else? Boom?
No, well, I haven't graduated today, so Boom's great for Airbnb as a platform is a great way for new hosts to get going. Great, it really is user friendly before you migrate onto a bunch of other platforms as you build a portfolio.
Great, and then I'm going to do another round again. Biggest myth in the short-term rental world. The biggest myth. Starting with you, Damian. Okay, we can't hear you. You need to switch yourself on.
Yep. Short-term rentals are the biggest influencer upon affordable housing crisis.
Wonderful. That's a great statement. Okay, Nick, your comment. Biggest myth.
Biggest myth is you just list it on Airbnb and the money will flow. It takes a little bit more than that. You need to be intentional.
Okay, Miguel.
Yeah, that short-term rentals Airbnb are passive income, similar to what Nick said. That's the biggest myth.
Great. Okay, then one thing to stop doing as a host in 2025. Damian? Stop whinging? We can't hear.
Taking guests for granted. They have spent a lot of money to stay at your property, and service them correctly and make sure you're providing value and you're giving them somewhere to come back to again and again.
Correct. Nick?
Stop being
doing
a passenger. Yeah, stop being a passenger. Come and join the communities. Share something helpful.
Cool. Miguel?
I think something that our European partners have experienced is don't assume things will carry on. Don't assume things will carry on as they always have. Change is coming.
Great. Okay, second last one. Favorite city for short-term rental inspiration. That should be an easy one for you, Damian.
Oh my goodness.
Must be one that stands out.
It's well, you know, actually, I think Bryn has mentioned Portugal here, and there are cities in Portugal actually that have gone one way and another, and I believe Porto is one, whereby they shut down, or at least there was heavy regulation on short-term rentals, and then actually they saw the data and they were persuaded to move back and actually open up short-term rentals in the city. So shout out to Porto.
Great. Nick?
It's Cape Town for me.
Here we go. All good. And it's growing market, massive. Miguel?
And for me, it's Johannesburg. It doesn't have the seasonality of Cape Town. And,
Great.
and
Wonderful.
we're a massive market.
Cool. Awesome. And then last one, and I know you guys, I didn't prep you for this at all. What is the word that sums up the future of short-term rentals? Starting with you, Damian. Just one word.
I think exciting. I think I mentioned that earlier on. I think we can get bogged down in negativity, and but there's huge future for this industry. So exciting.
Awesome. Awesome. Nick?
Progressive.
Wonderful. And Miguel?
Progressive industry.
Wonderful.
Opportunity.
Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, 30-second closing wrap. Leave your audience with something they can take forward, going forward of today's session. Starting with you, Damian, your parting shots.
Come to our event in Cape Town. You're going to meet these guys. You're going to meet so many more people. We expect between 120, 150 people to be there, and you're going to have some amazing conversations. So, and if you are coming, please come up and say hello to me as well.
Fantastic. Good, guys. So I want to let everybody know there is a link in the box. There's a 20% discount. It's the REI code that's in the box. Please come and join. Get part of the conversation. I think it's a good call there from Damian. Nick, your parting shots?
I've really enjoyed today's conversation with Miguel, Damian, and yourself, Neil. Thanks so much for putting it on, and really looking forward to seeing everybody join us at the Scale Conference. We're putting an enormous amount of effort. We've got a superb lineup. We've got some phenomenal speakers that are inspirational and will educate the industry tremendously well. So please come and get involved. We desperately want to make this a success, and I'd love to meet you all there.
Absolutely. And I'll just echo that to all the audience again. Please come and join us. Miguel, your parting shots, please.
Yeah. Local is lekker. Join your local community. We have WhatsApp groups in all the major cities. Neil, I'll leave a link with you that we can maybe add onto REI's website and newsletter. But join those communities, get to know other hosts close to you, support them, get supported, learn from them, and help each other.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks very much. That brings us to the end of today's session. That's a massive thank you to you, Miguel, Nick, and Damian, for your insight, your honesty, practical advice. And before we go, there are 3 ways to keep the community conversation going. So we'll follow up. So to our audience, we will share the recording, speaker resources, key takeaways via email. So please reach out. We will communicate. We will send the recording. Connect with the panelists. The links to their communities, events, and platforms are also at the bottom over there. Join the movement. It is a movement. Don't be caught off sides if you're playing in this game. And join the REI STR network. Optional if you're building one, but join them. They've launched a curated space for short-term hosts in South Africa, so join them. And more importantly, join the Scale South Africa event on Tuesday the 29th and Wednesday the 30th of July, Lagoon Beach Hotel. Tickets start from 1,600, but you get a 20% discount, and there is a link that's in there. So please join. Webinar attendees, you just use the promo code REI20 to get a 20% discount on tickets. So I'll be there. I look forward to seeing you there along with the Scale and Sastra teams. And just one reminder, we are doing a webinar next Wednesday. Okay, it's the 23rd, and believe it or not, we're talking about the role of legal eviction management in property investment success. A wake-up call for landlords and investors. Don't miss that one either. That's going to be a really good one. So to our audience, once again, thank you for joining us. Stay connected, stay collaborative, and let's grow stronger together. Until next time, from Miguel, Damian, and Nick, and myself, Goodbye for now. We'll see you all at the Scale event in Cape Town on the 29th and 30th of July.